I feel like dyslexia is an absolute God-given, brilliant gift as well as ADHD. But at the time, I didn't feel like that. I had so many horrible messages that I say to myself, that I've thought about myself. And I wanted to go back and get down on one knee and put my hand on this little boy's shoulder and look him in the eye and say, man, you are brilliant. You're beautiful. These things that we struggled with when you were younger are now actually gifts that people pay us for to come and share and connect and just give encouragement and inspiration to. So you are a champion. Nothing inside of you needs to be fixed. Nothing inside of you is broken.
Welcome to Tilt Parenting, a podcast featuring interviews and conversations aimed at inspiring, informing, and supporting parents raising differently wired kids. My name is Debbie Reber, and I'm the host of this show, and my guest today is Jonathan Oliver, who goes by the name of J.O. J.O. is a personal development coach, motivational speaker, author, and a coach for stay-at-home dads. After struggling greatly through his school years, J.O. was diagnosed with dyslexia and ADHD as a young man. And with a better understanding of himself, he learned to use what had been a source of great struggle as a catalyst for growth, seeing his diagnoses as the two best gifts he has ever received. Now a husband and a father, J.O.'s mission is to help parents and families, particularly stay-at-home dads, redefine family according to what works best for them. So in today's episode, we get into J.O.'s mission work as seen through the lens of a differently wired dad who is looking to break stereotypes, help dads become more connected parents, and inspire other parents to consider the way their neurodifferences can be used as strengths to bring to their parenting. And now, here is my conversation with J.O. Hey, J.O., welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, Debbie. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to having this conversation. I don't have a lot of dads on the show, but I know that we have a lot of dads in our audience and our community, and it's a perspective that I think is important to share. And I think you have a really unique story that also our listeners would find interesting. So I want to kind of go in depth into your personal story, but before we do that, could you even just give us the elevator speech, the quick description of who you are as a speaker and a writer and a dad?
Oh, appreciate it. Absolutely. So I am a professional speaker. I used to speak with an organization, particularly called Rachel's Challenge. And that's unfortunately the first person to lose their life in the Columbine shooting on April 20th, 1999 was Rachel Joy Scott. So for 250 days out of the year, I was on the road traveling as a speaker in schools and families and communities. From there, I transitioned to becoming a stay-at-home dad. I'd written a book before that called Impersonation, from my journey from boyhood to manhood. Then I decided to write a book about my experience of being a first-time stay-at-home dad. So that book is titled Joy in the Journey, First Year Chronicles of Stay-at-Home Dad, named after my oldest daughter, Journey. But in the meantime, I have always been on this book about dyslexia and ADHD that I just had to birth out to really feel like I was sharing my honest wholeness with the world. And that's what I'm in the process of launching right now, is to the little boy in me learning with dyslexia and ADHD. So I'm a stay-at-home dad of two beautiful daughters, Journey and Justice. I'll be celebrating my 10-year wedding anniversary on May 1st. And I'm a guy that has a lot of positive, great things going on in life that I'm very fortunate to have.
What a great introduction. And congratulations on the 10-year wedding anniversary coming up.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And I didn't realize that your speaking was surrounding that foundation related to Columbine. So that must have been really powerful, important work.
Oh, absolutely. Now, with that being said, I speak beyond that. Like just last week, I did a presentation to a group of athletes about suffering to become stronger. And I'm doing a leadership speech coming up. So I'm a quote unquote speaker, but my main focus for 6 years with Rachel's Challenge, and the 20-year anniversary, unfortunately, is coming up this Saturday on the 20th. And talk about having an opportunity to wake up every day and take a tragedy and turn it into a triumph was absolutely amazing. And it was one of the highlights of my life. And I still sometimes want to go back and be affiliated and speaking for the organization. But right now, my first priority has been a father and really grooming and shepherding my two daughters, Journey and Justice.
So you wrote this book, To the Little Boy and Me, Learning with Dyslexia and ADHD, which I had a chance to take a look at and kind of get to know your story a little bit. Can you tell us first why you felt it was so important to share your story?
The first thing for me right off the bat, it was therapy. It was therapy. I have a great therapist, but I've always been a introspective type person. And I tell people, for me, I often carry three people inside of me. I carry a little boy that likes to be spontaneous and have fun and play and be creative. I carry a present man that can capture the moment of what's happening in the moment. And then I carry this old man that's kind of wise and helps me kind of guide myself through life and not make too many foolish decisions. But the little boy has experienced the most pain. He's been isolated, abandoned, neglected, felt dumb, stupid, broken, not right. And I wanted to go back at this stage of my life where I feel like dyslexia is an absolute God-given, brilliant gift, as well as ADHD. But at the time, I didn't feel like that. I had so many horrible messages that I say to myself, that I've thought about myself. And I wanted to go back and get down on one knee and put my hand on this little boy's shoulder and look him in the eye and say, man, you are brilliant. You are beautiful. These things that we struggled with when you were younger are now actually gifts that people pay us for to come and share and connect and just give encouragement and inspiration to. So you are a champion. Nothing inside of you needs to be fixed. Nothing inside of you is broken. And I wanted to just pick him up and put him on my shoulder and just walk out and just feel this connection with him. And that's where I am right now. And then in the process, share that with other people that may have those same messages going in within about themselves, or they know someone, or just to share that with the community or families or corporations as a whole.
Well, it's so, I feel this so deeply when you talk about connecting with your younger self. I mean, it is so powerful. And it's really interesting right now where we are as a society. By the time, I don't know if this episode will air before or after this other one, but I recently spoke with someone about how so many adults are being diagnosed now, or identifying or learning more about who they are because of what they're going through with their children. But there is a mourning process that happens for so many of them, connecting the dots and having to go back and consider pain or trauma, that they suffered as children because of their needs not being met or just being misunderstood. So, I think your message is so timely. And could you tell us, I know that your ADHD identification happened recently, I believe, but would you tell us about your dyslexia? Tell us a little bit about your discovery of that and how that came about, and how was that received in your family and in your school?
So I'd say kind of the bottom line, the whole process. I wasn't diagnosed with dyslexia until I was a junior in college, a pre-med major, and I graduated from high school with honors. My whole academic career was just a grind. I've always been a very large kid. So I tell people sometimes, I'm literally 6'3.5", 225, 230 pounds. And I was that in high school. So I love being around my friends and being in the hallways and playing sports and that whole just camaraderie of excitement. But when I walked into a classroom, I became the quietest person in the class or the most distractive person in the class, because I did not want to be called upon to read out loud or anything where I was going to have to share some type of reading or connection in that regard. If it was talking from my heart or giving a synopsis or something, that's in my wheelhouse all day. So standardized tests in general, spelling, things of that nature, it was just agonizing for me. But I just grinded and worked really hard. And when I was in school, you had to pass this standardized test to graduate from high school. And it was called a TOS test in Texas at the time. I didn't pass this test until I was the last semester of my senior year in high school. And I was at the time a AP advanced placement student. So here I am taking the math part, the 6th time, the reading part, the 8th time, and the writing part, the 9th time, struggling on this exam. And I finally pass it. I get to college. I am taking genetics for the 2nd time. I get so frustrated because I've studied everything that I could ever imagine on God's green earth about genetics. And here I am about to take this test for the 2nd time. And it's the exact same test I took the year before. And I'm about to bomb it. So I flipped this test over and I wrote everything that I've ever studied about genetics on the back of this test. Professor calls me to her office a couple of weeks later, and she just says, J.O., why didn't you write what you wrote on the back of the test on the front of the test? You would have been the only person in the class to have aced the test. I think you may have a learning disability. Well, here I am playing college football. I'm a man. I'm big. I'm quote unquote strong. I don't have a disability. That's a sign of weakness. So after about 3 weeks of hemming and hawing and doing research and kind of skimming around this person's office, I went in and she did a bunch of diagnosis tests and things of nature on me. And the great thing about this lady, unfortunately, she's passed on, but she knew me from taking a reading remedial course to even be accepted into college to prove that I was college material. So I already felt safe around her because I had a connection with her about a month before I started college. I went in and she did all these exams. And 3 weeks later, I meet with her and she has a smile on her face like it's Christmas morning. And she says, I know what's been going on. And I go, please tell me. And she says, J.O., you're dyslexic. And I'm about to start crying because I literally looked at her and I said, I only have one question. Am I stupid? Mm-hmm. And she said, J.O., you may be the most intelligent person I've ever met in my life. She said, you can become an astronaut if you want to. The only thing that you do is that you learn differently. She said, let me tell you how smart you are. She said, you're so smart that you have innately taught yourself to learn. You have provided for yourself systems that if you would have been diagnosed earlier, these would have been the same system would have given you, and you taught them to yourself. And then my next question was, is that what Theo had on the Cosby Show? Because that's exactly what he had.
I forgot about that. You're right.
And from there, you know, I felt like I was Cuba Gooding Jr. at the bottom of the ocean in Man of Honor trying to put something together in the dark while my hands were shaking crazy. And all of a sudden the ocean just lit up and all the pieces just flew into where they're supposed to go. It began to click. Well, fast forward 6 years later, I'm working on my dyslexia book, the one that we're talking about now. And I'm meeting with this lady named Gladys Kalinowski. She's a leading researcher for the Skylar's Wright Hospital in Dallas, Texas on dyslexia. And she says, J.O., I bet you drive your wife crazy, huh? And I say, well, it is our first year of marriage, so I can imagine I do. And she goes, no, I'm talking about with your ADHD. I said, what do you mean ADHD? And she goes, you haven't been diagnosed? And I go, no, I've never been diagnosed. Goes, oh, well, 43% of people that have dyslexia have ADHD. You may want to get diagnosed. I got diagnosed and guaranteed right on the money. Test I never had to study for by pass with flying colors. And I had ADHD. And it all began to click. And I said 30 years old. So I was 9 years ago. But I still, Debbie, carried this shame with me. So just because I knew the answers and I knew where I belonged, that it was a name for it, I still hadn't got these messages out of my head. So within the last, I say 3 years, I've gotten to the point, and one of it was writing a letter to myself. In 2006, I wrote a forgiveness letter to myself, and I addressed it, Dear Jonathan Oliver, and I wrote this letter about all the hangups and habits and shame and stuff that I carry with myself, and I gave myself permission to have grace and compassion and forgiveness towards myself so that I wouldn't have to carry this around. I started that healing process, and then that just kind of catapulted me into the whole completion of the book and where we are right now.
We'll be right back after this quick break. Maybe I've watched too many seasons of The Amazing Race, but every time I have to go somewhere on the subway, I treat it like a competition. It's all about making the right gut decisions about which route will get me there the fastest. Sometimes those decisions get me where I'm going early, and other times my gambles don't really pay off. Probiotics can't help with most gut decisions, but if your gut needs a little support, Ritual has your back. Their Synbiotic Plus, a 3-in-1 supplement, has clinically studied prebiotics, probiotics, and a postbiotic to support a balanced gut microbiome. I've been using Synbiotic Plus for about 6 months now, and it's become a core part of my morning routine. I take the mini capsule every morning while making my way through my inbox, whether I'm at home or I'm on the road, because it doesn't need to be refrigerated. And the capsule itself is delayed released, which helps it survive the harsh conditions of the upper GI tract for delivery to the colon. And that's exactly where we want it to go. Ritual invested in a study modeling the human colon, which showed that Synbiotic Plus significantly increased microbial diversity and the growth of beneficial bacteria. There's no more shame in your gut game. Synbiotic Plus and Ritual are here to celebrate, not hide your insides. Get 25% off your first month for a limited time at ritual.com/tilt. Start Ritual or add Symbiotic Plus to your subscription today. That's ritual.com/tilt for 25% off. During this month of planning and organization for big transitions, rhythms and routines have been absolutely essential for our physical and emotional well-being. So Green Chef nights are reliably and predictably a good night. We know the ingredients will be fresh and prepped, the instructions easy to follow, and the meal delicious. We're all still talking about last week's turkey tacos with mango chimichurri sauce, refried beans, and Monterey Jack cheese. Green Chef contributes to a healthy lifestyle with easy and delicious menus like fresh seasonal salads and grain bowls. And with over 80 weekly meal and market options, plus rotating options to suit a variety of lifestyles, whether Mediterranean, plant-based, calorie-smart, keto, protein-packed, gluten-free, there are always plenty of options to choose from. Whatever you select, you'll get farm-fresh ingredients, organic whole fruits and veggies, and premium proteins, all delivered straight to your door. I love those 4 words, straight to my door. Oh, and one more thing I love about Green Chef, they have an app, which means it's easy to manage meal preferences and delivery from your phone if you want to. And I, for one, want to. I am in that mode where I'm making the most of little moments like waiting in line at the pharmacy or for the F train to pull into the station to tackle all of those to-dos. So the convenience of an app is key for me. Green Chef has a special offer for Tilt listeners. Go to greenchef.com/tilt50 and use code TILT50 to get 50% off plus 20% off your next 2 months. That's 50% off plus 20% off your next 2 months when you use the code TILT50 at greenchef.com/tilt50. I love this idea of writing a letter to yourself. I think that can be super powerful. What other ways have you found to heal that pain, and to help the child in you who was never understood kind of feel seen?
So, phenomenal question, by the way. This is a great question. I say this jokingly, but I say this out of complete honesty. What I used to get in trouble for and struggle with as a kid is what I get paid for now. Be quiet, sit down, stop moving. You have too much energy, all these things. And no knock on my teachers, okay? Where I am in my life is because I had 3 teachers that particularly believed in me. I had a 2nd grade teacher named Mrs. Dodge who made learning fun. So I knew that it was possible to have fun while you were learning. I had a AP chemistry teacher when I was a senior in high school that was not amused when he knew I was wearing the class clown mask. And he would simply just kind of pull me to the side and not shame me and just say, Oliver, I think you have more to offer that you're not giving us right now. And then I had a AP English teacher that has passed on who said, when you get to college, she already spoke into my life, places where she knew that I was going to go beyond where I was at that present moment. Just that little message of when you get to college connected with me. So, Abraham Lincoln once said, I didn't try so hard because I believed in myself. I tried so hard because I didn't want to let the people down that believed in me the most. And these are my big 3 that I knew that believed in me when I was on academic probation, things of that nature. But where I am now, where I give back is, I'm a speaker. So dyslexia is a superpower for me because literally I'm a visual learner. I'm an audio type person. So I connect with stories. I'm a storyteller. That's a gift that when I speak and share with people, that resonates with them. That leaves an impression with them. With an ADHD, I have this energy. I have this just charisma to light up the room and to bring this type of connection and this passion. And it can easily be felt across this phone as we're speaking right now. As I'm talking, I'm literally walking around in my office right now. Well, guess what? When I show up to speak to 3,000 people, they're not paying me to stand behind a podium. They want me to come and speak as if I'm speaking directly to them. Well, I'm going to move so much in our room, not wasteful movement, but just in movement in general, that you're going to feel that, And the cool thing is when you're a stay-at-home dad, you got 2 kids under 4, ADHD is a pretty cool tool to have.
Say more about that. How is your ADHD a superpower as a stay-at-home dad?
Oh my goodness. My daughter, my 3-year-old, my daughter Journey, which is one laps around the living room just because of energy that she has. We we wake up and we do things. We get things done. We have fun. We have adventures. We go places. We try different things. We start out with affirmations in the morning, but we just have excitement and learning and experimenting, that I know that I have this energy that can connect with them on that level. And it shows in the way that daddy and daughter have this bond together. My wife is a scientist. She's a cardiologist. So I often tell people she works on the heart, I work in the heart. And she doesn't say this like, I'm not saying this when I say this about her out of cockiness and arrogance. I'm saying this because I've heard her say it, and it's out of love and appreciation. It's like, sweetheart, you were designed for this role of being a stay-at-home dad. She's like, this is your calling. There's no way that I could do and have what you have with the kids, the way you interact with them. That's my ADHD. Now, do I struggle reading Dr. Seuss? Absolutely. Okay, I'm not going to read Dr. Seuss. I struggle reading books and things of that nature. But when we're going and we're having that connection and I'm multitasking, but still trying to be a mindful parent. So I got a bottle being warmed up. I know a nap time is getting ready to happen. I got a diaper being changed over here, while I'm also knowing the troll music has been playing for the 15th time in the background. And I'm getting ready to defrost some food so I can cook dinner around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. When all of that is happening, I'm not flipping out. I'm not like overwhelmed. I'm in my normal element. But with somebody else who may not have ADHD, and I don't even like the D part of it, disorder, I like to say challenged at the end of it. They may walk into that environment and be like, it is too much going on here. I need a break. Mm-hmm. Where I walk into the environment, I'm like, okay, well, once I get that done, then I would do this, and then we'll do that. And then I also told Journey that I'm going to read this book with her. And then I promised her after she wakes up from quiet time, we're going to watch Dr. McStuffins. And then, and then I want to make sure I have the house in a certain way. So when my wife comes home, she doesn't have to feel like the house is a disaster. Okay, cool. It's Thursday.
That's great. I love that. I'm just curious if you have any hacks. I'm always curious about when people make their, or, just embrace their neurodifference as a gift, but also, I know with ADHD in particular, a lot of people have formulated their own systems and hacks that kind of make the difference work for them. So do you have any?
I have tons of them. So right now, when I write for writing, for example, when I used to write, I try to write like Ernest Hemingway, worst thing ever. And then I transitioned to writing like I speak into my iPhone, and I would send it to myself, and then my wife would dictate it. Now I advanced to where I would literally do a video into my iPhone of what I want that chapter to be, and I'm literally speaking it out as if I'm writing it. I send it to my assistant, and she just transcribes it for me. Changes the game completely. Mm-hmm. I have a master calendar that I'm looking at right now in my office. If it's something where I need to have a time meeting, like right now I knew we had a time meeting, that's boxed in yellow on my master calendar. And the number is kind of boxed around in a highlighted yellow. If it's where my name is coming, that's in pink. And I bleed that over to my actual iPhone. But I know where I can look at things right then and there. But those are just, simple little things. Now, I will say this. There are challenges with being ADHD. I lose lip chap all the time. I'm always misplacing my keys. Sometimes my wife and I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning to work out. There are times if I approach my wife too early and she haven't had coffee and I'm asking her what she dreamed about the night before, she's like, look, you need to chill. Okay. It can be a lot. I've lost $300 before in my wallet because I bought something and I misplaced my wallet, and I went back to the place where I misplaced my wallet. My wallet was there and the money was gone. Mm-hmm. It's times when we get ready to leave a table, a restaurant or something, my wife would say, do you have your wallet? Do you have your phone? Do you have your keys? Do you have your credit card? Okay, cool. Because I've left this is an old BlackBerry, the old one with a little pearl in the center. I left it on a outside patio table after we finished eating in South Beach, went back to where we were staying, realized that 35 minutes later, went back and the phone was still in the same spot because the tape hadn't been busted yet. That stuff happens all the time.
Yeah.
And but for the hacks, the biggest one I've learned, and it's the one that's the most tender to me, is to give myself grace. Like to really give myself grace. And I'm a visual person, so I have quotes that are taped around my mirror when I wake up in the morning. One of them is, if today was the day you're going to die, will you want to do what you're about to do today? I give myself grace to be careful, because before my feet hit the ground, if I'm not mindful, I will already start playing that negative tape that I'm not enough, that I'm not this, I'm not that. And I've given myself enough grace to say, you're amazing. I love you. You're brilliant. You're doing great things. Breathe. Be nice to yourself. Now, if I'm doing something boring, like an expense report that I know I don't want to do, I'll put some classical music on in the background, some instrumental music on in the background. Work on my report while the music is kind of playing. If I'm working on a project and I know I'm going to get overwhelmed pretty quickly, I might work on it for 15 minutes. Get up, go do something more exciting. Come back and then go work on it 15 more minutes. And then I might find myself in a rhythm and I look up and I've been working on it for 45 minutes. I don't try to read a whole book in a day anymore, which I never could anyway. I just read. Now I've just got to the point where I read 5 pages at a time. If I read more than 5, cool. If I don't, I stop. Because I used to get so overwhelmed. I got books that I've been wanting to read forever, and I haven't. The only reason I've been struggling to read The Alchemist for the last 8 months, and I think I maybe got 50 pages to go. So just give myself grace. Just, give myself some grace. Give myself a hug, some encouragement. And when I do that, I show up better. I show up better for this connection that we're having right now. I show up genuine. I show up compassionate. I show up with love and nurture versus sarcasm and criticism and anger and frustration with myself. When I show up like that, it shows up in my marriage. It shows up in my parenting style because I have no patience. And it shows up with the way I interact with people in society because I don't have any mindfulness of what they may be going through.
We'll be right back after this quick break. Hey there, it's Debbie. I love making this show and sharing conversations about how to support our awesome neurodivergent kids. I've seen how even one little insight from an interview can spark a big shift in daily life. But I know that raising complex kids can be messy and lonely. And just when we think we figured it out, something comes up that boots us right back to feeling overwhelmed and stuck. That's why I've poured everything into creating a way for parents like us navigating complex parenting journeys to join together and chart a path that feels positive, hopeful, and doable. It's the brand new Differently Wired Club experience. In the club, you'll get personal support from me and other seasoned parent coaches, 6 live calls every month where you can connect and get your personal questions answered, the opportunity to learn directly from authors and experts like I have on this show, monthly themes for getting specific and tactical, an exclusive private podcast feed, and the best, most generous community of parents. Seriously, these folks show up for themselves and each other, and that right there is really everything. Because it's a daily reminder that we're not alone. Our kids aren't broken, and we have totally got this. The recently rebooted Differently Wired Club is on a brand new platform with its very own iOS and Android app. It is such a great space. However you learn, whatever your style, no matter the ages, genders, and neurodivergent profile of your children, the Differently Wired Club can help you cultivate the positive shifts you're hoping for. Join us today by going to tiltparenting.com/club. That's tiltparenting.com/club. I hope to see you on the inside.
Are you overwhelmed by the things that get in the way of you doing what you want to do? Are you looking for ways to simplify life to better align with your values? Do you want to create space in your schedule so you have room for more of the good stuff? Play, joy, relationships, gratitude, and more? If you answered yes to any of these questions, I invite you to check out Edit Your Life, a podcast to help you edit the unnecessary from your life so you have more room to enjoy the awesome. Through episodes with me, Christine Coe, and a range of super smart, compassionate, and thoughtful guests, you'll come away with big picture insights and practical ways to declutter your home, schedule, and mental space without getting bogged down by perfection. I have always believed that small moments and actions matter tremendously. My goal is to help you find agency and space in your life through doable baby steps that will leave you feeling accomplished instead of overwhelmed. Check out Edit Your Life wherever you enjoy your podcasts.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that's a lot of what we talk about in the TIL community is just that intentionality, and setting that intention every day. I go through phases where I do an affirmation first thing every day. And I think those things really do make a difference. Those rituals and routines can really help set the tone. And it doesn't mean that we are going to have a flawless parenting day, but just setting that intention and knowing that that is our highest goal, I think can really just help in all aspects of our life. So I love that you do that.
I will say this just briefly. One of the things I started doing about 5 years ago, and this is for the listeners, every morning I wake up and I have what my intention is for the day. And I send it to 10 people, including my wife. That's what my intention or my prayers for the day. And every night before I go to bed, I send to those same 10 people 10 things that I'm grateful for. And it's the way I start my day and I book in my day. And I do it almost every single day, except for probably on Saturday and Sunday, because I don't want to make it like a legalistic type thing. That right there has changed my whole mindset of finding something to be grateful for. And then lastly, my great grandmother taught me this when I was a little boy. I'm talking like 5 years old. Every day, except for on Saturday and Sunday, because I don't want to make it a legalistic thing, every day I make up my bed first thing I do when I get out of the bed. Mm-hmm. Because no matter what happens throughout the entire day, at least I can say I got one thing accomplished. Even if I take a nap late on the afternoon in the same bed, I still make that up before I go throughout the rest of my day. And that's just who I am. And it makes a big difference on starting my day with one positive movement by just making my bed.
Love that. So funny. As you're saying that, I'm thinking on days, I too really like a nicely made bed. And on days when I don't make the bed first thing, I often, if I had a crazy morning and I then left the house and I come back and then dinner, and life goes on, it's 10 o'clock. I go in my bedroom, the bed's unmade. I will often make it just so I can get in a nicely made bed. That's awesome. Gives you a little window into my mind. But I love that. I love that starting your day with that. I want to ask you one question before we kind of wrap up too. So I'm curious to know, how your family responded to this information, when you were identified as being dyslexic and ADHD. I'm curious about that because I'm wondering if your family felt any sense of, oh gosh, we missed this, what that was like. And then also as an African-American man, I know that in the African-American community, there is more stigma or not as much trust of certain diagnoses. And I'm just wondering what your experience was like in those situations.
Two phenomenal questions. First, I remember telling my dad when I was a junior, and keep in mind, dyslexia is hereditary. So I probably got it from one of my parents, and I can pretty much tell maybe it was more likely both of them, but probably more likely my dad. But with that being said, I remember telling my dad in Walmart parking lot when I was in college, and he just kind of had this, and I got this from him. He's like, okay, and we're just going to keep on growing, That was his response. My mom, we just talked about this 3 weeks ago, and she was listening to some interviews I've done about the book, and she called me and she just said, I feel like I let you down. I feel like I should have noticed. And I could tell she was my mom, I'm a mama's boy. She has 3 boys. I'm the middle child. So I grew up watching Oprah with her. So that's why I'm very introspective. So, and I just told her, I said, no, mama, no, you didn't let me down. You didn't drop the ball. This is the way it was supposed to happen because I couldn't have a testimony if I didn't have a struggle. And so she kind of felt like she had let me down. And I write about her in a book, how she worked so hard with me reading and helping me truly be nice to myself. Going to the African American community and just the black community, as I would say, when I say the word therapy, that can, it's not a lot of people that I know of. I've surrounded myself with people that I've gotten older now, when I was growing up, you didn't talk about therapy or going to therapy as a Black person. It was like, what? Why you want people to know your business? Why you want to share that type of stuff? And unfortunately, also, it was a lot of sometimes jokes made about, if so-and-so, quote unquote, had ADHD. It was like, you need to go somewhere and sit down and take your medicine. And they hadn't taken their Ritalin yet or something like that. That's why they're bouncing off the wall. So there's a lot of shame and sarcasm put behind it. And I think it was not because it was intent to truly hurt an individual or even myself. I think it was because it was a lack of true understanding and knowledge. And that kind of left a gap on just speaking kind of from the cuff without really understanding the weight was what being said. And I do feel like even now there's a stigma behind dyslexia and ADHD because it can be implied that it may be a lack of education or intelligence behind it. And you know very well that is the complete opposite as well as the listeners. But if you're not familiar with that, you're like, oh, you got dyslexia? Okay, then that explains a lot. Well, what do you mean by a lot? Because actually it explains that I'm pretty much a genius. But so I think that would be my response. Is now where I am at almost 40 years old, there's still a lot of cringe in certain environments when you mention therapy. My wife and I have a marriage therapist. I see a therapist. But truthfully, these things are part of the toolbox that allow me to show up and be the better version and the best version of myself that I have to offer the world. So that's kind of my response to that. That's a great question.
Well, I love that too. And I think it's so you just being in, you're writing about your experience, you're talking about it. And that's how I believe all this change happens. That's how we change these preconceptions about certain diagnoses or therapy or any of these things. It's talking openly about it without shame and normalizing it. So you're doing really important work. So one last question before we go. I'm curious because your work is, you cover so many different things. You're really trying to support stay-at-home dads. You're sharing your story about your learning differences to help other people. Do you know what your big kind of why is in the world? Like how, if you could leave a legacy or change people in one way, what would that be?
I often say this: life is what you're born with. Living is what you do with it. And I'm choosing to live.
I love it. So, okay. Tell listeners then where they can connect with you and learn more about your work and your books.
So the best way to get in contact with me is through my website, JonathanOliverOnline.com. I do a great job of keeping my website up to date. It has links through all of my social media involvement and outlets, as well as what's happening for his events coming up for his speaking, things I've done in the past, podcasts and things of that nature. So JonathanOliverOnline.com. My big, hairy idea and goal is for this book, To the Little Boy and Me, Learning with Dyslexia and ADHD, to become an Amazon bestseller so that I can get this positive message out into many hands as possible so that that little kid, that mom, that parent, that dad, that neighbor, that coworker don't have to feel alone, don't have to feel stupid, don't have to feel like they're broken and need to be fixed or something's wrong inside of them, but that they're brilliant and that they're beautiful and that they're wonderfully made. So that's one reason I wanted to be here with your listeners, because I want to get this message out as much as possible.
Well, thank you for sharing it with us today. And listeners, I'll include links to J.O.'s website and to his book that we discussed, To the Little Boy and Me, and other resources we talked about, of course, in the show notes page. So you can just go to that, which I will leave the URL at the end of this, and go connect with J.O. and find out more about his work. So thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today and sharing your journey. It was a moving conversation, and I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on as a guest.
You've been listening to the Tilt Parenting Podcast. For the show notes for this episode, including a link to J.O.'s website, books, and all the resources we discussed today, visit tiltparenting.com/session160. Don't forget to leave a rating or a review for Tilt Parenting in iTunes if you haven't done so already. Ratings and reviews help keep this podcast visible in an ever-growing sea of podcasts. Thank you so much for considering. Lastly, for the price of a coffee at Starbucks once a month, you can support the production costs associated with this show. It's easy, it's pain-free, and I would be grateful for the help. If you would like to support Tilt Parenting and this podcast, please go to patreon.com/tiltparenting for more information. And that's all for this week. Thanks again for listening. And for more information on Tilt Parenting, visit www.tiltparenting.com.
Hey, are you a parent of a teenager? Are you feeling overwhelmed about how to be what they need while also holding limits and boundaries that keep them safe? Are you tired of conversations that negate how messy this season of parenting is? Well, I've got you. My name is Casey O'Rourke. I am a positive discipline trainer, parent coach, and the host of the Joyful Courage podcast. Every week, I come to you with an interview digging into tough topics with experts I trust and solo shows that go deep into the personal growth and mindset needed to raise teens in a way that grows them into confident, capable young people. I am not afraid of getting real about the intersection of conscious parenting and the teen years, while also bringing in vulnerability, humor, and lightness. I'm walking the path with you and honored to serve. Listen to Joyful Courage on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you consume podcasts.